of the next 10 God, which is indirect wealth. I believe during some of the earlier sessions that we have covered, we have more or less talked quite a bit about some of those people with wealth star in their chart. So today's element, which is the indirect wealth, is essentially one of the more profound or one of the more sought after element, as you know. I mean, when we look into the 10 gods, when you look into the 10 gods, you have the friend star, you have the hurting officer and the eating god, and the indirect resource and so on. But of all the 10 gods, I would say that this today's 10 god on the indirect wealth is the most sought after, because it is about what? Because it is about money and sex. Therefore, the most two powerful energy, the most two powerful energies that drive the motivations of people. And indirect wealth is shortcut money. Indirect wealth is windfall. Indirect wealth is gambling money. No need to work hard. Therefore, making it far more sought after compared to direct wealth, one that you have to work for it. Okay, so here, as we look into indirect wealth, as you know, the indirect wealth means what? It means the element to which the day master controls. So the day master controls. So as you can find that power, the search or the need for power is one that dominates human activities. Every day that we wake up, when we wake up every day, we look for money. We look for money. We look for sex. We want power. And therefore, the desire to control, the desire to master the elements, and therefore that's indirect wealth. And indirect wealth is the same polarity. So indirect wealth is the same polarity as the day master. Therefore, yang for yang, yin for yin. Therefore, it is not harmonious. It is not the kind of a wealth that is well respected in the past, because it is not of the yin-yang harmony. But here, the indirect wealth is the harmonious product of what? It is the product of what we cover in the last session, which is hurting officer. Therefore, indirect wealth is the child of hurting officer. So when we look at the indirect wealth, what are the checklists? What do we want to look for? We also would like to look for the output, to see whether there is an output. If there is an output, then there is a harmonious generation for wealth. And so here, indirect wealth represents anything that is of the side deal, anything that doesn't come with work. Therefore, it represents business people, entrepreneurs. And indirect wealth people want things very fast. They expect speed. They multitask, and they are willing to take risks. And therefore this, and of course, indirect wealth also represents the father. And therefore here we look into what the indirect wealth represents, the people. And why do I say sex? Why do I say sex? Maybe this is more from the masculine point of view, because indirect wealth represents the male. It represents the male's girlfriend. It represents the second wife. And therefore, that would be one of the things, therefore, has this. But having said that, we do find that even for women, especially those with peach blossom, indirect wealth, we can also find that similar reading can also be made. Therefore, here we have to say that when we say male's girlfriend, do not discount completely female. Do not discount. Therefore, it may be a reading for female as well, especially for the yang and strong day master female. It may also work the same. Because why? Because once again, it is about control. It is about control. And sex is about control. Money and sex are both about the same, similar type of control that we want as well. Okay, so if any people were found to have a lot of indirect wealth, then it is a life of wine, women, and song. So therefore, what are the places it represents? It represents clubhouses, nightclubs, discotheques, hotels, retail outlets. Those are the indirect wealth, but it represents merchants. It represents the merchant class, mercantile. So it also may represent the share market to a certain place. Represents where money is easy come, easy go. Trading platform, auctions. That's what the indirect wealth also measure, or is also equally represented here, all the same as well. Yeah, as it is. Dewey, welcome. This is your first time here. Key something in the chat if you can hear this message as well. Please feel free to ask yourself any questions during the session. Anytime. Please make sure you can unmute yourself to ask questions if you like as well. Yeah, at any time. Okay, thank you, Dewey. Okay, so here, indirect wealth. Indirect wealth people, what is their philosophy? What is their philosophy? Each of these have their own concept. Each of them have their own concept and their own thinking about how one can solve problem as well. And therefore, let's take a look into the philosophy of the indirect wealth people. When we talk about 7K in the first part, when we talk about 7 killing believes that power is about military might. Power is about physical strength. That is what the 7K's philosophy would be. The indirect resource believes that knowledge is power. Education is power. For a nation to be prosperous, the nation must pursue education, must be the first to learn. Therefore, that is the direct resource philosophy. The friend star believes in working together, collaboration, network. Power is who you know. It is not about what you do. It is not about what you do. It's not about what you can do. It's about who you know. Therefore, friend star is about connection. Friend star is about the power is about connection, to link up with people. So when we look into hurting officer, what is the concept of power? Power is creativity. Power is innovation. When you create new things, with new things, you disrupt the mainstream. You challenge the authority. You become the disruptor. Therefore, hurting officer is disruptive, it is innovative, it is creative. It is to change the way things are. Therefore, that's hurting officer. Eating God as well. Eating God also is quite rebellious, all the same. Their output, because they controls the office. And so here, very easy. Today's 10 God has a very clear, direct philosophy. What do you think is the philosophy of the indirect wealth? What do you think to them, how they solve their problem? This is a very easy one. Well, it's money. Power is about money. Money can solve problem. If it is a problem that money can solve, it's a very easy problem to solve. Therefore, throw money at people and it will solve your problem. And therefore, indirect wealth enjoys making money. Indirect wealth is about big picture. So anyone with indirect wealth, dominant indirect wealth in their chart structure, don't guide them to become accountants. Because accountants, auditors, they need to be meticulous about details. Because indirect wealth people, they don't remember prices one. They don't remember prices. I mean, you can ask them, hey, the shampoo that you bought last time, how much was it? I don't know lah. What do you think is the how much the price has? I don't know lah. Therefore, not sensitive to prices. Okay, they are financially imprudent and they like to spend. Easy come, easy go. Therefore, the philosophy adopted by indirect wealth is money. Money can solve problem. So if you can make more money, then you can solve more problems. All right. Therefore, indirect wealth are big picture. They like to talk, and because they can see the big picture, they are entrepreneurs. They are multitaskers. Therefore, they like to see things in multiple perspective, and they want things very fast. Therefore, they are impatient and they are impulsive, and therefore sometimes they start running, but they don't very well finish it. So they are good starters and poor finishers. They are the talker rather than the doer. Therefore, they talk, they don't really do very well. All right, so there you go. So this would be how we can look broadly into how the indirect wealth people, what is the personality like, what are their views in life, as we look into this one. Okay, so now as we come along, so indirect wealth, if we look into the classic literature, of course, when you look into some of the famous writers of parts way back into the Tang Dynasty and Ming Dynasty, indirect wealth is inauspicious. Indirect wealth is not really looked upon. But then, of course, in the ancient Confucius society or even before that, we find that merchants are fourth-class citizens. First, you have, of course, the elite, the ruling class, the kings, the emperors, and the nobles. Then you have the landowners, the farmers. Second class are the farmers. Third class are the artisans, the skilled workers. Fourth class would then be the merchants. And therefore, here in the old value systems, even if you look into Japanese culture as well, way back into the days of the samurais and the shoguns, even though Japanese warriors fight for control land and so on, but the men don't touch money. Even until today in their culture, their men would pass all their salaries, all the money to the wife. So the wife is in charge of the money management of the household, because to them, touching money is not so dignified. So in that sense, so the merchants are looked down because they touch money, so to speak. I know it may sound a bit hypocritical today. What do you mean by touching money is beneath you, but then you look for money. But anyway, that is just how the value systems are. These people, so therefore here, they will consider that indirect wealth are people who likes to dabble with money, so to speak. Okay, so the indirect wealth are very frank, because they are merchant, meaning that they are frank about money. They are frank about money. And in the ancient society, the values is about don't talk about money. We talk about principles, we talk about friendships, we talk about business. Money, talk later, settle lah. That one, my people will talk to your people. That kind. Therefore, merchants are the frank about money. So therefore, to them, it's direct. And so the way that was looked for is then money face. Therefore, indirect wealth is considered to be money face. So they are frowned upon as it is. And of course, these merchants, now the thing about merchants, especially merchants are middlemen and intermediaries. And you can find that the attitude towards intermediaries or middlemen, even until today, has always been looked upon in a form of a despise. Even if you look into the newer types of investments like digital currency, cryptocurrency, they talk about DeFi, decentralized finance, or bypass the middleman, bypass the bankers, bypass the intermediaries. And therefore, indirect wealth is being the middleman, because here in it, being the middleman sometimes can be perceived to be what we consider to be tax collector, or sometimes considered to be toll collectors, toll collectors, or sometimes extortionists. So when gangsters come to charge you protection fee to protect you from themselves. Therefore, that would be also the kind of indirect wealth. So indirect wealth is perceived to be looking for money without work. That is the consideration. So indirect wealth will then be akin to those who enjoy speculation, those who take risk. However, they are generous. So to them, money is easy come, easy go. And somehow, funny as it may be, they are not overly attached to material possession. Now, this may be sometimes strange for some people. They are hungry for money, they work hard for money. And what do you mean that they are not overly attached for material possession? So if you can recall, I think some time ago I asked you this question. What makes you happy? What makes you happy? Is happiness in the making money, or in the happiness is in spending money? So which one makes you more happy? Making money or spending money? As it is. Therefore, that would be the question. So therefore, here we can find that the indirect wealth is in the making of the money. So they enjoy making the money. Both, of course, Kimte. Of course, definitely both. Both are enjoyable, but not necessarily the same. Like one over the other. Okay, so anyway, let's move along and to consider that indirect wealth, you don't find them overly attached to material. They're very adaptable and definitely not employees. So indirect wealth do not make good employees. They cannot take monotonous, stable job. They need to be dynamic. And therefore, for indirect wealth, they enjoy being entrepreneurs. They like to do business themselves. And they like to, of course, be self-employed. So those are the indirect wealth type. So we'll move along to then see what else, and again, sex. So when reading indirect wealth for men especially, indirect wealth represents the mistress. It represents the second wife. And therefore here, if the indirect wealth is more auspicious than the direct wealth, more so when the indirect wealth is later in the chart, or more so when indirect wealth is in a peach blossom, So what is the worst case? What is the reading for quite a worst case for indirect wealth for a male chart? So if you look into the male chart, where is not the best place for men? What's not the best place? Okay. Therefore, here we see that number one, if we have the day master here, what is not traditionally, once again, this is traditional. Okay. So therefore, you have a male friend, loves to make money, of course, has a main chi in the year pillar. Therefore, indirect wealth here is here. That's why I call it here. So therefore, that would be one of the facades. Sure, it can be visible. Okay, you can say that quite a very bad position to have for indirect wealth. Is actually here. Because if the indirect wealth is here, especially when the direct wealth is outside, then this normally spells in the traditional reading, in the classical reading, potential marital problems. If not careful, then they are likely to be divorced with the first wife, and therefore move on to the second. This will be the case where the day master may love the girlfriend more than loving the wife. The wife may be married at the earlier stage and career more transactional. So the wife is more of a transactional arrangement. More of a transactional arrangement. And this one is more for emotional arrangement. Therefore, that will be the case as well. Yes, if the indirect wealth is inside the day pillar, so we're looking to the branch, the branch. Okay, or indirect wealth is here. If the indirect wealth is here, and worst come to worst, if this is a peach blossom, if this is a peach blossom star. So if the indirect wealth actually sits, it's actually the indirect wealth element itself. Therefore, then this is also a reading for potential extramarital affairs. Therefore, as one of the reading, if the peach blossom is in the hour, this is the reading for it, for the potential risk of extramarital affairs. So this is when the indirect wealth is stronger, is prosperous than the wife or the direct. Because once again, peach blossom is also pig. Can anybody type that? Which are the 4 animals for the pig? Just the benefit of everyone. Anyone knows what are the 4 peach blossom stars? What are the 4 peach blossom stars? All right. Yep, that's right. Rabbit, horse, rooster, and rat. Very good. Thank you, Jenny. So therefore, just for those who needs a refresher. Anyway, this is our session here already is intermediate to advanced. Therefore, for those who needs a refresher. Oh, sorry. I do not know. Okay, so therefore that will be. All right, so I'll move along. Okay, let me just come to. Yeah, so therefore that's where we look into the indirect wealth. What are the inclinations? Okay, so the danger, of course, is the indirect wealth. It has a very strong inclination for speculation and profit. Another word for speculation and profit is also gambling. Therefore, if indirect wealth is too strong, too dominant, it may have a tendency to gamble, a tendency to so-called lost all their money away, especially when the indirect wealth is clash. So when it's strong and when it clashes, then has this. We'll come to hidden stem later, yeah? Do we? We'll come to that. We'll come to that. We'll come to that. Whether it's protruded or whether it's hidden, yeah? As it is. We will come to that. Okay, now, what is good or bad up to you to see. Indirect wealth people will find it hard to say no. Hard to say no. Sometimes a lot of problems can go away if we have developed skin thick enough to just say no. Because so indirect wealth people are polite. They tend to, of course, accumulate what we call emotional debts, meaning to say that when you ask them for a favor, they will likely say yes, even though they don't feel like doing it. They're not very hard to say no to people. That would be the indirect wealth because they are generous. They are very they are philanthropy and they care about what people think. So for indirect wealth, they might not tell you, they might not admit it, that's because indirect wealth people care. They care about what others think about them. They care about what others think about them. They are not the hurting officers who don't care. They are not the 7 killing who also don't care. Especially the Fui Kongs. The Fui Kongs don't really care about what other people think of them. They're hard to kill. the freakons, to commander stars. But indirect wealth, they care. They care about what people think. They might not say it, they might not admit it, but they do. And therefore, this is where it's very hard to say no. And also, and this very hard to say no is also very hard to say no to emotional advances. Therefore, that's why they get complicated into romantic situations. So in that case, it is also, they are also, and this hard to say no also means they can fall into love traps. Love traps. And because of the desire for money and the desire to have this emotion, that they can also be exposed to scams, exposed to con jobs. That would be it. All right, and they are Casanovas, of course, as they enjoy the chase. As it is. Okay, so these are all the broad overview about what the indirect wealth stars. Okay, so now come again. They are generous, they are straightforward, they are very frank, and so, and we look into the indirect wealth. What are the jobs that they can usually go for? They can be diplomats because they care about what people think of them, and therefore they like to be intermediaries. They are intermediaries, so they can be a lecturer. They are good in general business, and they like to do deal making. So in that case, deal makers, bankers, intermediaries, entrepreneurs, diplomats. These are these are the jobs that indirect wealth will. And the indirect wealth, they also are heroes, especially they are the knight in shining armor. They are people who would stand up for the oppressed or stand up to protect the weaker gender. Because here the indirect wealth is about control. Therefore, to control the scenario is to assist in the one part. Therefore, this would be the characteristics of the indirect wealth. Okay, so now let's move on to where can we find indirect wealth in the natal charts. So the way we're coming to your question, yeah, as it is. Okay, so now let's take a look into the first chart here. Li Ao, if you take a look into this person's chart, just very quickly, can you just identify where do you find this person? Where do you find this person? Where do you find the indirect wealth for this chart? So very simple. Where do you find the indirect wealth of that? So this is a sin day master. All pillars. Okay. All right. Very good. So in the first part, this is a sin day master, sin metal day master, born at the end of spring. Therefore, metal is dead. The metal element is dead. And the sin metal is not rooted. So an unrooted dead day master. So the day master is weak. So this is a weak day master, born in spring. And spring is wood, and therefore wood is strong, and wood is wealth. And therefore this will be a chart where self is weak and wealth is strong, dominant. All right, and therefore here we find number one. What do we see? Number one, we have your indirect wealth. Indirect wealth, rooted. So once it's rooted means where else can we find the indirect wealth? Here. Indirect wealth is here, and indirect wealth is here. Okay, so the four indirect wealth. Jenny, correct? Yes. Okay, so here we can see, of course, number one, indirect wealth is protruded. Is protruded. And so it is protruded, it is penetrated into the stem. Therefore, this person has a fasa. So this is a fasa of an indirect, and it's rooted and so throughout life. So this would mean that the person throughout his life, he would have indirect wealth as a dominant feature, a very dominant feature in the characteristics. And then, of course, we find that there's a dragon to dragon self-punishment. So with a self-punishment chart, they may also feature that the wealth is released. Okay, so that's Derwis. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Yeah. And so now we see that. So now your question. So if it is penetrated into the stems, especially at the fasa, basically means it's available to the public. So his wealth will be known. People will know that this person is rich. We will know that you're rich. Now, if there is no indirect wealth protruded at all and is only hidden, and not just hidden in graveyard. Dragon is a graveyard. Dragon is a graveyard. And therefore, if it's hidden in the graveyard without any protrusion, then this is a case where people will not know that you are rich. People will not know that you are rich. And it's not easily to be scammed. So it's better protection for rock wealth. And people will not know if you cheat. So this guy, if he cheats, will the public know or not? Can he cheat or not? This guy better don't cheat, because if he cheats, people will know. Why do people will know? Because the indirect wealth is protruded, therefore people will know. So if it is completely hidden, that means if I change the story, if it is completely hidden, if this is something else, that's completely hidden. Will people know or not? Then people will not know. No one knows. So you cheat quietly, and then furthermore, you will love your mistress more than you love your wife. Got wife or not? Wife is sadly here. Wife is in death and emptiness somewhere. And so possibly marry early. Possibly marry early. Why early? Because wife appears in the year pillar, very early in his life. And then death and emptiness some more. So maybe the marriage wasn't successful. Maybe it wasn't happy. And therefore that might lead him to cheat. Met somebody at work and then emotionally throughout the old age. Correct. But exception. Is there any exception? Is there any exception that if he cheats and no, except for what? Except for one element. There's one element that people will still find out even though it's completely hidden in graveyard. What element is it? Yes, very good. You got it right. Think fire. Because think fire is illuminate. So if your indirect wealth is think fire, that one people will know. There's nowhere to hide. Nowhere in your chart to hide. As it is. Okay, so anyway, this one is Yeatwood, can hide. But then of course is contributed. Alright, so therefore that's one thing that we can more or less see. Now just this one has nothing to do with today's topic. But if you look into his chart, this one has to do with last week's topic. Last week's topic, we talk about what? Last week's topic, we talk about hurting officer. And hurting officer, which element does the hurting officer not like to see? Hurting officer does not like to see what? That's right. Hurting officer does not want to see your direct officer. Now, what is the direct officer for this Sin Day Master? What is the direct officer? The direct officer will be in the form of the fire controls metal, isn't it? And direct officer is opposite polarity. Therefore, the pink fire. So pink fire is the direct officer. Pink fire is the direct officer, and therefore, when this person reaches to the age of 37 in 1971, this is where he meets the direct officer. So direct officer meeting hurting officer. Direct officer meeting hurting officer. Basically would spell legal problems, would spell legal issues and what. And because he was a politician, because he was a politician, and therefore at one time he was considered to be a traitor by the other party. And so that's where at the year where the direct officer meets the hurting officer, that's where he was jailed. He was jailed by the Kuomintang government for just half the decade. That's the funny. And again, this one is where some people have the opinion that when you look into the luck pillar, some say that the first half, the first 5 years, the first 5 years are more dominant by the heaven step, and then the last 5 years are more by the earth branches, for the earth branches. Therefore, when you have the hurting, when you have whether it is direct officer sitting on EG, so this is a direct officer sitting on eating god structure, and of course there is quite a strong pillar there as well. Yeah. Right. So anyway, that was what we covered last week. So last week, if you have hurting officer should not see direct officer. Therefore, it has to do with legal issues. Watch your back, watch your back, so to speak. Okay, so anyway, this guy has also got a lot of strong hurting officer here and there. But anyway, in terms of marriage, in terms of marriage, so therefore, this person married, uh, he married a very popular actress, Terry Hu. Just within 4 months, not even 4 months, there was a divorce. Therefore, he married. Before 4 months, he divorced. Then, of course, later he married his second wife, adopted. Therefore, this would be the case where it would be expected to find that this chart has an. Once again, all these are just likelihood. All these are just probability. Doesn't mean that it will must divorce and will have an affair. So not necessarily the case. There are remedies to cure. I mean, if this person learns about his chart and he doesn't want to have an affair because he is a politician and he doesn't want all this reputation and all this nonsense, then there must be ways to remedy. Okay, so now let's take a look into the next person. The next person is Andy Lau. Andy Lau. So now for Andy Lau, Andy Lau is a very popular, famous person, one of the four tigers, or popular in Cantonese. And so now when we look into Andy Lau, where do we find if there is any indirect wealth? Got got indirect wealth or not? Okay, got therefore this will be here, isn't it? Therefore that will be. The way I think I answered your question already. This is when hurting officers see direct officer in the pillar itself. Yeah, that's just what the hour was there. Okay, so this indirect wealth is unrooted. So this indirect wealth is unrooted. But never mind, because number one, this will be the case where the day master is water, Koi water, born in autumn. Water is strong, growth energy. Water is strong. So a strong day master, weak wealth, very good. We like to see that. Of all the formation, we like to see strong day master with weak wealth. And therefore, there's only one which is a ting fire, unrooted. But but this fire got wood or not? Does this fire has any wood to burn or not? Are there any wood that can allow this fire to burn? Yes, therefore there is wood. There is wood to burn. Very good. So therefore there is wood to burn, both wood. Therefore we have wood to burn. So it's still not very bad. So with wood fueling the fire, therefore, well, and remember, we did share this before. This is one of those earlier PUBG basics. If wealth is side by side with you on the day pillar, you will be among the richest in the world. Therefore, this is a lot of people's dream to have the day master side by side with wealth among the richest. And therefore, the richest can be seen. Therefore, for Andy Lautakwa, the public will know that he is wealthy because of indirect wealth that is being fed by the woods. Alright, so therefore this is protruded to the stem, and this is the career pillar. So the career pillar is one that is dominant, and making money, that will be his life. And in a way, making money without work. And sometimes we do consider that those who sing, those who perform, it feels like, I'm not saying that it doesn't. I mean, being an artist has a lot of hard work itself. But like people like Taylor Swift can just spend one night singing and then make millions out of it. So therefore, the high leverage in making money makes it looks like the career is one that leverage. Like no need to work. I mean, if you enjoy singing and it's a hobby for you, that kind of person exists. Now, indirect wealth is very charitable. They are very charitable people. They like to help. So therefore, that's one thing that we can also observe and see as well. Okay, now for Elon Musk. Elon Musk. Do you find indirect wealth? How many? Therefore, now Elon Musk is a day master born in summer, the peak of summer. Therefore, born in the peak of summer, indicating that wood is weak, wood is dying energy. Therefore, this is a weak day master. And in summer, earth is strong. And therefore, earth is strong, the wealth is strong, earth is rooted. Therefore, this wood has, of course, indirect wealth and is penetrated side by side. Once again, the dream of many people, to have a wealth star protruded side by side, therefore can be one of the richest in the world. And therefore here we have the indirect wealth on the hour pillar, and then friend star here, give the friend star provides support to the day master, especially when the day master is weak. So the day master becomes relatively strong. Day master is strong because day master is rooted and supported by friend. Friend is about network partnership, and indirect wealth, of course, is entrepreneur. This makes the chart one of the pretty auspicious chart to look at itself. Now, this person will love the wife more or love the mistress more. This person will love the wife more or love the lover more. This is especially when indirect wealth is in a spouse pillar and the wife is outside suffering death and emptiness, that met in the office as well. Therefore, this will be one that you can read. That will love the lover more than the wife, and wife is in death and emptiness. So therefore, the indirect wealth is stronger than the direct wealth. And so, in this context, of course, marital issues would also be expected to be one as well. All right, so we look into the chart, finding out whether they are protruded, whether they're hidden, and when they're hidden, are they hidden in the where are they hidden? Where are they hidden? The worst place to be hidden is in the graveyard on the tomb. If it is hidden on the storage, not so bad as it is. Okay, now of course again we come to the counting. We always do this, and I always remind you We don't simply count for the sake of counting. Therefore, these numbers help. And again, if you have 7, basically if you have 7, you are already super vibrant. If you have all 7 means you are completely surrounded by only one element. Therefore, that's a super vibrant chart. Super rich. 7 in that. And so usually as every in all aspects in your chart, one of everything is good. So therefore, one is wealth, lovely lady. So you have a very nice life. Wealth, very good. A bit more pleasure seeking already. Then here it turns into opposite. Why? Because greedy. Greedy. If you have 5, you are domineering. Once it's domineering, it becomes greedy. And then imprisoned becomes, you become a debt. Become a debt slave. Possibly gambled too much, owe people too much money, now have to work whole life to pay back their debts. And therefore, that would be the downside of indirect wealth. Too greedy, easily caught, easily cheated. Therefore, that will be the case for the indirect wealth. But once again, be careful with counting. Be careful with counting. But anyway, how many indirect wealth charts does Elon Musk has? 3. 3. So you have 3, then pleasure seeking. So Elon Musk may be identified to be somebody that is more pleasure seeking. Pleasures. And how about Andy Lautakwa? Andy Lautakwa has how many? 1 in there. But here, does Andy Lau has direct wealth or not? Do you see direct wealth in his chart? I don't have. I don't have. Actually, very good. Basically, this becomes the wife style. This becomes the wife. So the wife is like a girlfriend. Therefore, therefore, that is a very, very good sign. Therefore, this is good. So the wife is protruded. This is going to be a happy marriage, loyal to a certain. When the wife may be more attractive than him, so to speak. In a way. Okay, and so now how about this person? This person just now we saw has 4, isn't it? You have, and therefore, if you have 4, therefore, then you become stingy, and therefore doesn't mean super rich. And even if the person is rich, the person may lose it all. And therefore, this is also sometimes where there's prone to make money mistakes. So once again, just because you see indirect wealth doesn't mean the person will be rich. Sometimes when it's too dominant and it's too strong and too many, they also tend to be making money mistakes, which makes them the exact opposite of being rich. The exact opposite. They might lead and die in poverty due to this part as well. And so, reading indirect wealth, be super careful. All right, let's finish up with the attributes very quickly. And so, I think this is just a little bit more of a bit of a repeat. So, what are the favorable attributes? So, if wealth is favorable, if indirect wealth is favorable, means can make money, can make money, can be able to be an entrepreneur, helpful, very romantic. Indirect wealth are romantic, they're passionate, smooth talker. But once wealth is unfavorable, then it will be the other way around, as mentioned. They're excessively generous, they cannot say no, they let people take advantage of them. So people take advantage of them. Because like you go to a party, you go to a club, right? And this indirect wealth will be one of those that says, drinks on the house. Or everybody, your drink is on me. And then they will attract all this fame, and then they will have, and then of course they'll know that these people becomes a sucker. I think there's one word for it, something like a tortoise like that. All right, so therefore that would be it as well. Okay, so as you move along, then you can find out now if you find them on a year pillar. Now, if you find it on a year pillar, especially when it is dominant, then it may represent ancestral wealth. So indirect wealth may come from rich, come from rich. But communication with the father not so good. So therefore, born from a well-to-do family, born from a richer family, but relationship with father not so good, and they don't like to study. Then there's no dislike to study. Why do we say that? Because wealth star controls what? Wealth star controls what? Wealth star controls resource. Resource like to study, so wealth don't like to study. Therefore, they dislike to study. So people with dominant wealth star in the early years are people who are not prone to be academic. They're not prone to be. Yeah, in a month pillar means career. And month pillar is also in the ancient text, what we call Chinru, which means entering into society. So that's why the month pillar is the pillar where you enter into society. Yeah? The year pillar is the pillar when you are born into family. Yeah? So year pillar is into family. Month pillar is into society. So it's career pillar, is into society. So when you enter into society, therefore that's where make money, inclined to make money, easy to make money, therefore very easy to be approached, and they can also combine study with leisure activities. So to them, so don't just automatically say that indirect wealth means don't like to study. If it's in a career pillar, they can like to study. And day pillar now means into self, into self. And so as you're into self, this is where to have indirect wealth means branch, or branch means you then have your spouse. So the spouse is the one having the characteristics, having it. And so this where has already mentioned, in the case of male, the spouse means favoring mistresses more than wife. As this. So what would be the remedy? The remedy is don't marry too early. Don't marry too early. Let the element bypass. So in a way you can say that if we look into the other chart here, where we can say that the wife is here in death and emptiness, and you have an indirect wealth here, therefore favoring the mistress over the wife. Therefore, the remedy is don't marry. Don't marry. Don't marry too early, or don't marry into the family. As one that is into the self. Therefore, delay, and then of course get to know the person more. So therefore, at least that's what can be one remedy if one can actually follow this remedy, if you can. And now if it is into the hour, that's into your outcome, into your outcome. Therefore, that's where your outcome is either children or into your investment. Therefore, this is where at the old age, desire to become wealthier, and one can still make good money. Right, so therefore, if the indirect wealth, that would be also very nice, making it a very good investment luck by itself. All right, so there we go. And here, I'll just leave some reading here for the next session, indicating what happens when your wealth star is too strong. Please focus on number 2, which means it's negative now. What happens if it's too weak? Again, if it is negative. What happens when your wealth star is too domineering, too weak? Or, of course, as usual, in the classical part, we always like moderation. Moderation is always something that we tend to welcome. Okay, so anyway, I'll just leave you here. We finish up the session as it is, and I'll see you next week as we continue moving on into the what happens when you meet your indirect wealth in the luck pillar, meeting indirect wealth, the arriving indirect wealth energy, and the sitting on. That will be for next week. I'll see you then. Okay, so I wish you all good night. Thank you very much for joining our today's session.